ek het gewonder, hoe gaan ek vir die coach vra, hoe verkoop jy hierdie wedstryd? En dan use the ultimate cliché, en let me gaan die grootste boksgeveg môre hier gebeur op Loftus van môre, meneer. Die Bulls teen die Lions môre. Wat is op die spel vir julle môre, coach?
Dieselfde wat verlede week was. Ek kan dit weer en oor sê, is die kanse dat elke span tuis semies kan speel en elke span 'n tuis eindstryd kan speel is min. En die geleentheid wat ons nou gehad het, hierdie laaste paar weke met Leinster wat so ver voor is dit amper onmoontlik dat hulle nou nie die nommer 1 posisie gaan kry nie. En die interessante ding wat ek gesê het, Percy, jy was nie hier so op die laaste paar keer nie, maar interessante ding van die laaste 3 jaar, is die span wat bo geëindig op die punte leer, het nie die toernooi gewen nie. En die interessante ding is die span wat tuis gespeel het net 1 keer gewen. So, vir my, dit is nie, hierdie week is nie groter as verlede week nie, en dit gaan nie groter wees as volgende week nie. Ons speel die Stormers volgende week, dan kom jy my sê, nou is dit Noord-Suid Derby, is dit nie die grootste game van die jaar nie. Ons weet, ons wil ons beste rugby speel die laaste 3 weke van die toernooi, en dit sluit in die uitspelwedstryde. En jy weet, daar's 'n goeie kans, jy kan nie dan tuis speel in die final of in die semifinal nie, maar dit beteken nie, jy kan nie die toernooi wen nie. So, môre is nog 'n groot uitdaging. Dink is ook belangrik, ek wil eintlik in Engels dit geantwoord het vir julle, maar ons het 'n 9 weke toer gehad in November maand vir 'n paar spelers. Daar's nie ander klub wat dit gedoen het nie, daar's nie ander spelers in die URC wat dit gedoen het nie. Ons het 4 weke na mekaar derbies gespeel. Daar is nie 'n ander span in die top 16 of in die URC wat 4 derbies in 'n ry gespeel het nie. Ulster speel nie teen Leinster, Munster, Connacht en sê Leinster weer nie. In die toernooi nie. En dan ons gaan weer op 'n 5 week toer. En die rede daarvoor is, as ons wen en ons speel Challenge Cup, dan moet ons daar bly en ons gaan 5 weke op toer wees. Nou, in een siklus van 9 weke weg, 4 derby weke in 'n ry en 5 weke weg, is dit net, dis een van daai jare wat heeltemal anderste as enige ander jaar en heeltemal anderste vir enige ander span. So, dis nie weer eens 'n verskoning nie, dis wat jy moet uitwerk. En dis hoekom, julle gaan net my vra, hoekom hierdie man en hoekom daai man en hoekom, maar ons is in 'n baie anderste posisie as enige ander span. Kan jy dink, derbies, is almal praat oor die derbies, ons kry 4 in 'n maand. Daar is nie ander span wat 4 in 'n maand kry nie. Die Stormers het 'n week afgekry, Sharks is 'n week af, verlede week voordat hulle ons gespeel het, Stormers is hierdie week af voordat hulle weer vir ons speel. So ons moet ook slim wees en ook verstaanbaar wees. Ek praat nou van ons kant af, om te verstaan, dis 'n heeltemal ander uitdaging wat ons het. So is dit 'n groot game? Of course is 'n groot game, maar gaan volgende week groter wees. Verseker. Hulle kry 'n week afstommes hierdie week, hulle moet wen. Hulle sê hulle wil top 8 maak of top 4. So wat is die verskil? So jy hoef nie te gevoel het in jou karina toe dat dit 'n moeilike vraag is. Dit is baie maklike vraag om te antwoord.
Laat ons nog gesê, die verskil van hierdie week is, en jy sal my korrigeer as verkeerd is, julle is ieder van 'n gekneusde span na verlede naweek se wedstryd. As julle geestelik aangeskakel om hierdie Lions span aan te vat môre hier op tuisveld môre?
Ja, kom ek verduidelik vir jou. Hulle het verlede week teen die Stormers gewen. Hulle was, wat is die woord wat jy gebruik het?
Gekneusde span.
Hulle was gekneus hulle teen ons gespeel het. So hulle het dit omgedraai. So wat is die verskil? Ons kan nie uitwerk maar as hulle verlede week verloor het, dan ewe skielik gaan ons hulle 50 punte wen. So, dit werk nie so nie. Dis derby games. Ek verstaan, ek sê dit altyd, ek is lank in hierdie game, ek verstaan die media, en jy weet, ek gaan nie 'n lyn gee waar jy vir hulle spanpraatjie kan gee nie. Dis 'n groot game, ons is tuis, ja, ons is seer van verlede week, ek kan nie verstaan, ons het verloor nie. Ons het 19 strafskoppe gekry, ons het teen 13 manne en 12 manne gespeel, ons was 12-10 voor, ons forward pack was so ver voor hulle gewees, en oor hulle gewees, dat ek kan nie glo, ons het daai game verloor nie. Maar dit gebeur in sport. Ek het van hierdie week vir hulle gewys. Tiger Woods het soveel putts gemis. Ek dink Michael Jordan het 9000 shots op die hoeps gemis. Ek het gisterand gekyk, kan jy glo, Alcaraz het verloor. Alcaraz, kan jy glo? My nommer 1 in tennis, hy het verloor gister in die kwart eind in 'n toernooi iewerste. Hoekom is dit? So, dit gebeur in sport. En einde van die dag, as ek sê dit aanhoudend vir die spelers en vir julle, ons moet gemeet word op die laaste 3 weke van hierdie toernooi, en ons het die laaste paar jaar altyd daar naby gewees in die laaste 3 weke. En dit gaan presies dieselfde wees. Ons gaan moet Leinster of Glasgow of Munster of Benetton of Sharks moet wen om hierdie toernooi te wen, en al hierdie hurdles wat ons nou kry gaan deel wees van ons voorbereiding op die einde, of vir die einde.
So Jack, you said you can't believe you lost last week,
Yeah.
But these things happen.
Yes.
Question is, they seem to be happening more and more often. If I take
Yeah,
it
not
back-
really. It happened 4 times, and then we changed it some, and then
If it happens,
I'm being. It is happening. And when I say it is happening more and more, it is not happening more and more. We're discussing it more and more. I don't want to compare with other teams, but every year we every year we can discuss what we could have or should have or wouldn't have. We're not at the stage now as a Bulls team where we can run out and dominate every team every Saturday. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you we can, because we can't. I mean, I just mentioned to you now again that the uniqueness of this year has been, I'm just going to put it in perspective again. 9 weeks away some players have had. Then we came back, we played 4 derbies. Guys, there's no other franchise in the whole top 16 that plays 4 derbies in a row. I'm not talking about South African teams. I'm talking about any team. Tell me any team where the URC have 4 derby weekends in a row without a break, and playing teams that have weekends in between off. I mean, there's no ways that can be a bonus to a team that's wanting to win. So that's the next thing. And then the 5-week tour that's coming, when you have these injuries, and everyone's got them. And you've noticed I haven't put a link out about how many injured players we've got, because it doesn't matter. Every other union wants to tell me. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't put Coral du Plessis and Gert Smal on that list, But the reality is everyone is sitting with the same position. And so I mean, I sit here and I also say to you is I'm a realist. It's not happening more and more. It's not happening more. We're playing more and more rugby, and more people are expecting us to hit our straps every Saturday, and that's fantastic. But it's not going to happen. I mean, as I said, Alcaraz lost tennis last night. I mean, he lost to somebody that wasn't even seeded. Now, what does that mean? I mean, that means that in sports sometimes it happens like that. And all I've got to try and do is, and as a coach, is these are the weeks we've got to try and regroup. These are the weeks we've got to try and use whatever lessons we've learned. And if those lessons are we're not finishing people off, I probably erred on the weekend because I took Willie off. Maybe I should have left Willie on. And then you look at me, all of you, and you go, but Willie, he played 40 minutes because he was in the bin for 10. And the first 40 minutes that he was on the field, or the first 30 minutes he was on the field, we were in our half and our 22 for 80% of the time. Now, I haven't met too many 10s that have been able to defend on their try lines and still win man of the match as a 10 in the time that I've coached. So again, I needed to share with you guys that we're not, the only people who think we're in a hole, and we might even, as I said, we might not win every game going in all the way to the end of the tournament, but I'm not for 1 minute sitting here saying that, it's all doom and gloom. I mean that, Sim. And as I said, I'm teasing you when I say it's not happening more and more. It's happening to the Bulls, and people are writing about it. But I can tell you a lot of other teams are also not hitting their straps at the end. And some people will look at the last 20 minutes of certain games and go, that's unbelievable, because they came back, they had great fighting spirit. They didn't win. When we have fighting spirit and lose, then all of a sudden, it's not important. It's only important that you win. And again, I'm only comparing with what I'm trying to get. And I'm not going to change that narrative to the players that I'm coaching. Are we where we need to be? No. Are we where I want them to be over 5 years? No. Are there factors that are involved in it? Of course there are. There's injuries. There's the draw that we've had. I mean, which other team has played 9 games or 10 games in URC and played 7 away? Ooh, and there's no other team. Which other teams had 4 derby games in 1 month? No other team. So there are going to be challenges that we're going to have to handle. And if that comes at the cost of not getting it right every week, well, then we must accept that. That's part of why we coach. And as I said, sorry, but I just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page.
We got our line incidentally, but Transvaal and currently.
Okay. No, well, I was surprised he wasn't on that sheet. I mean, I spoke to Gert the other day. He also says health's not that great, and You know, I mean, North Porter also wasn't available for this weekend, but I mean, you know, but Dupree's 89, you know. Maybe I should look at him. I could eat locks as well, you know.
Sorry, Jake. The question was, who's kicking tomorrow?
David will kick. Yeah. I mean, David kicked from the touchline and against Benetton and won us the game. It happens. I mean, he was almost lauded for the fact that he could kick the winning kick under pressure in Benetton to win us the game. And he missed a few kicks. I mean, I've seen Springboks miss kicks, you know, incumbent Springboks miss kicks. So it is, I mean, imagine, and I say this with respect to all of you, imagine if I worried about everything being half full or half empty. Imagine, I mean, I'd be a nervous wreck, you know. They're going to come, they're moving, the lines are coming, they live in Joburg, they're going to stay in a hotel tonight. Coming like they're doing it as an away game, you know. So, I mean, no, good luck. What I'm saying, it's fantastic. You know, for me, it means the exact opposite. It means they take us very seriously and they know that it's a tough game. So I don't read it the other way where, you know, are you under pressure? And as I get asked, you know, how are you going to, you know, surely you're going to, you got wounded last week and the other team won, so surely you must. Sport doesn't work like that.
Last one for me. Incidentally, what do you expect from the Lions? Obviously, you know, having played them so recently. Yeah.
Well, I'm expecting exactly what we get from them every time we play them. They lift their game against us. A lot of them live in this town. I said it to you before. A lot of them have been here as juniors. I expect them to want to I suppose to prove that they can still also have been at the Bulls, because a lot of them were here. And that happens. I mean, I coached in France. When you let a guy go from your club to another club, generally he plays really well against you as well. I mean, you look at Rudolph Strauly, you look at Hannes Stradom, you look at Gavin Johnson, you look at Uli Schmidt, you look at Johan Roux. They were all playing at Harlequins with Kitch. They went to Transvaal, and what happened? That team dominated not only Super Rugby, dominated Currie Cup and won a World Cup. So sometimes moving players from one region to another just brings out the best of them. And one thing I found with the Lions is generally those players have played really well against us. And we beat them with a bonus point, but I also know that that scoreline didn't reflect the way that game panned out when last time we played them at Ellis Park. So I'm expecting them to be exactly like they always are. They're difficult to beat. A lot of them have been tapped on the shoulder into the lineman camp, which I'm sure is going to boost them as well. But, you know, that's no different. I can sit here and tell you we're playing Leinster, and it's going to be exactly the same. Leinster are top side, and the next week we play Stormers, then Leinster. It's never going to change. I mean, people come here and they want to beat the Bulls. People come here and they know that it's tough to play at Loftus. And my job is to make sure that stays as a given at this club. The day that changes, you know, then we got a problem.
Jake, ek al vir baie jare af, jy het nou verwys na Saterdag se oorheersing met die bulle voorgehad, die strafskoppe, hulle het 12-13 ouens gespeel. Wat dink jy wat die bulle in hulle het wel gekort Saterdag om die wedstryd?
Ja, vir my is dit maklik, Kobus. Ons het leierskap. En is weer eens niemand se skuld nie. Ek wil nie hê nou Reinhard Ludwig is nie 'n leier nie. Maar as jy Marcel verloor en jy verloor Elrich en jy verloor Roan en dan vat jy Willie af. En ek sê weer eens, miskien ek het 'n fout gemaak omdat die dokter het vir my gesê, jy weet, hy sukkel met sy lies en ek het gedink weer eens, dit was my gut feeling, forwards is dominerend. Ons is voor op die tellbord as 30 minute oor. Ek kan nie 'n risiko vat nou met Willie nie, en ek het gedink met Boeta gaan ons genoeg hê om die game klaar te maak. En in hindsight, miskien moes ek, omdat ons nie daai leiers op die veld gehad het nie, en miskien omdat die game so was. Dit was 'n interessante wedstryd. Kom ons eerlik met mekaar. I mean, as jy daai game weer, as ek nou weer van 50 minute moet speel, 12-10 voor, 12 manne op die veld, kans is baie goed ons wen daai game 10 keer. En dis net, I mean, dit gebeur in sport. So dis maklik vir my. Ek dink ons net leierskap en kalmte en miskien Willie wat miskien net daar vir almal verduidelik het wat ons moes gedoen het. En dis hoekom ek sê, I mean, dis is weer op 10. Weet julle gaan met my vra hoekom. dis een van die dinge van rugby wat ek ook geleer het. Jy kan nie aanhou dat jou team verander nie. I mean, een van die dinge wat die Bokke gedoen het, ek praat voor my, jy gaan kyk, is Hannibal, Stransky, Braam, Hannibal, Stransky, De Beer, Hannibal, Libbe, ek gebruik net name, De Beer, en daar was nooit 'n loskakel wat toetse na mekaar gespeel het nie. En ek sê dit net as 'n les wat ek geleer het. En een van die dinge wat ek geleer toe ek die Bokke afgerig het, is jy moet probeer om 'n 10 daar te los wat ten minste sy stempel kan afdwing. En ook daai hitte kan weer en weer, jy weet, en the learnings, ek weet nie wat, kan hy ook, jy weet, hy kan dit ook verstaan. So, dis hoekom ek sê, dit was maklik. Willie is nou terug, en hy is weer op 10, en ek is 100% seker, is die 3de week wat hy nou in daai posisie gaan speel, saam met dieselfde 9, so ek dink het gaan net kan beter wees.
Dit Saterdag nou die Sharks net te veel spoed in die buitekant gehad. Is dit kom Stedman en Sebastian.
Wel, dat is een van die redes ook, en ek sou dit in elk geval altyd verander het. Jy weet, ek dink, I must speak English, Kobus, if you help me with this, but I don't want the plan and the promises and the things I've said to the players to be influenced by the fact that we lose a game. I'm not for one minute saying, therefore, you must just change the team. You know, that's not the point, because sometimes I've just contradicted myself. I've said sometimes you need to leave players in those positions for longer periods of time. But I also can't expect and I'm repeating myself because I think it's very important that you guys understand it. 9 weeks with certain players away from home, 4 derby weeks in 4 weekends, which is unique to this competition. As I said, there's no ways that any other team since this comp has started has played 4 derbies in a row against each other over a month. And I'm going to repeat, with teams that have rests in between. So it's not like the other teams are playing derbies and then they play us. I mean, the reality is you get a week in between 2 and then a 5-week tour. And so I cannot then go, no, but you can't play and I'm going to keep this guy and you're never going to get a chance, because part of the coaching now is managing that as we're building up to the end of the competition. And you know, what I've got to plan is that by the time we get to the last 3 games, everyone's fit, everyone's available, everyone's happy that they've combined and they've had a hit out, and because you've got to keep the club happy too. Part of being a coach is, I mean, anyone who's played rugby will understand. I can't expect guys to just hold tackle bags forever and never get a chance, you know. So yeah, so it is a little bit of that. It is, you know. And maybe it looks now that we've got more speed, and maybe that's part of what you know, as I said, it's an influence of what I saw how important speed was last week. But I would have done it anyway, had we not been beaten for speed or had we won that game, because I'm going to have to do it in the next couple of weeks as well.
Gotcha. Jake, you mentioned speed. I didn't catch it. Is Cameron Hanekon?
No, he's still out. He's still hurt. He's got a bang on his calf, and you can imagine that's quite an interesting thing you say, but I mean, his point of difference is his explosiveness and his speed. And if he's not at his best with his calf, then there's no use. Mm-hmm. But I didn't put a press release out that he's injured, so you probably wouldn't have seen him.
No, you mentioned last week that if he had been there, he might have filled
100%. There's no doubt in my mind. There would have been things, I watched the game, there would have been things that he would have stopped happening before they happened. And then the end picture looks like we were exposed, but he would have been in certain positions when the ball bounced or when there was a turnover. He would have been there, you know, 2-3 seconds before that, which meant that the end result, as in the end picture you saw, would never have occurred.
But have you maybe relooked at strategies to prevent line breaks like that happening? Without
just pick quicker players and get injured players back on the field. I wish I could sit here like a prophet and say to you that it's, you know, that's what sport does. But it's not a knee-jerk reaction. I said to you before the game, and if you remember, I said to you the one thing they do have, they picked a backline that's got speed and they're going to run. So it's not like I'm telling you in hindsight something that I didn't warn you about before the game happened. And the unfortunate thing is, as it unfolded and as the gaps opened, the players who were the ones I thought would be the ones that would be the ones that would do that were the ones that did it. So that's why I suppose also you feel on a Monday or in a press conference, geez, we let that one get away. But I'm not blaming anybody.
Thanks.
He actually asked exactly what I wanted to talk about the soft tries that you leaked and where the problem came in. And when we spoke to Grubbies earlier in the week, he was saying the forwards got a bit frustrated because they were doing the job. And then the gaps opened up and the quick guys got through. And somewhere that defensive line got a bit mixed up.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to say, again, and it's just how sport works. Do you know that where they scored their first try was that one breakaway try was a box kick that Kane didn't catch, and then they went through the hands, and then they scored, I think, Lorenzo Juries, or I think Hendricks scored in the corner. Do you know that ball went out in the 22 and it was a 50-22? Did you know that? Okay. So those are the margins. I mean, Kane kicked the ball and it rolled out in the 22, which means it's a 50-22. They threw the ball in the line out, did an exit kick and scored. That's a change of, that's a significant change. Now, those are the margins that I'm talking about. And Rugby wouldn't have spoken to you about that, and he wouldn't have, but shows you how quickly it can change. If there was our line out and we had mauled them and there was another yellow card, who knows, maybe that game goes a different way. And I sort of repeat myself. I've been doing this such a long time that I'm not, that happens in sport. I mean, there are times that I tell you, I thought maybe the try that Rugby scored was track and trailer on that maul. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you guys that they made so many mistakes and we should have won, because maybe he could have blown and said that when we broke away from that maul, we actually were doing obstruction, and he probably would have been right. In fact, he would have been right. But to answer your question, I've got no doubt that, and I know it sounds crazy, but having Cameron there, because he closes holes and he gets to places because of his feel and his speed, that gives him the point of difference to what we actually have in our squad now. And it's nothing. Every guy's got a strength and a weakness, and the strength that he had was the one we missed this weekend against a team that was always going to play like that. And I thought the forwards up front would have won us the game anyway, so I wasn't too concerned about, because you can't play unless you have the ball. And they got the ball from positions that I didn't think they would get the ball from. I mean, if I ask you, if we kick an up and under 9 out of 10 times on Kane and Moody, I would guarantee that he would catch them. Now, it's not, it happened. Please, I don't want you to write now again, Jake loses faith in Kane and Moody. I mean, because I'm saying I would have put my house on the fact that the one wing they kicked to, which was his side, he would have caught that ball, or, he would have killed the loose scraps there, and that we would have been able to have a scrum. Now, that's simple. Imagine if that ball bounces, he dives on it, he knocks it on, he dives on it, scrum, our ball. And that whole picture for the next 5 seconds, 10 seconds looks completely different. So, I'm not giving a rugby lesson in me. I'm just saying that I've looked at that game over and over, and I'm really not going to put, too much negativity in that, because that's the quickest way in which we can get ourselves in the hole.
Thank you.
Still questions that?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind. It's like the 8-9 combo, 9-10 combo. Embro's had probably one of his weaker games of the year. I mean, he's been exceptional.
Yeah.
And do you think the combo with Vali is going to come right? Is Embro's not maybe a bit fatigued from playing so much?
Probably is. I mean, it's one of those, as I said, it's such a difficult thing, because if I change him when he was playing so well anyway, I mean, now a week later, I can say to you, he's fatigued, and maybe. But a week before that, it was a master stroke keeping him at 9, and he got picked into the national setup for the first time in a long time. So now I'm thinking, I've kept him. He's just got picked into the Springbok setup. I don't know if you noticed, but he played his 100th game. His wife came out with him. I mean, that's an incredible weekend for him. Gets picked back in the national setup, and he wasn't at his best. Now, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to predict that before the game. And to answer your first question, I've got no doubt. The longer I leave them together, because they're both very good players. And I think I don't also want to be unfair to Willie by changing the 9 all the time as well, because he's just getting to understand how, he hasn't played 10 there for a long time. I want to give him the confidence that he's got the same 9 looking after him as well. But I'm 100% right. We're agreeing with you. He didn't play his best game, but, in hindsight, maybe all those things, 100th game, picked in the box setup. We forget they're young. Kids are young, and they, sometimes people handle it differently.
The game you won against the Lions, you referred to last time, they just kept running into walls.
Yeah.
You guys had a very long line and then a single guy at the back.
Yes.
Do you expect the Lions to now kick more this game, or maybe go around the edges? Because we saw, in theory, last weekend there was a bit of a gap there. How do you think the Lions will approach this game?
I think they'll kick a bit more. And I'll tell you why. I think because the try they scored against us was from kicking through. Remember? So I'm not saying they're going to kick everything. They're going to kick more than they usually kick because of the fact that they exposed us at the back with that 14-1. But we might not be 14-1 tomorrow. So, so that's why it's such a, part of coaching. And when you play these derbies and you play each other, they've only played one game since they've played us. So when we try and do an analysis on the Lions, nothing's changed if you think about it. Because only one fixture they played between us. Whereas we've played, so there's obviously more analysis for them to do. And that in itself too, MV, it's a very interesting thing that you debate because, and you would understand because you remember when in the old days, the Champions Cup used to play one team home and away on consecutive weekends. And that was always a hell of an interesting thing for that competition. Because what would happen is you would have to work out a plan one week and you would have to change the plan the next week because if you play them back to back and you do the same things, and it used to be very good for coaches and very good for coaching because you'd have to strategize a 2-week plan based on certain things will work, certain things won't work, and I can't repeat certain things because they'll understand it, So, as I said, not giving too much away, but maybe 14-1 is not the way to defend against the Lions.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you, the switch of Kane to 14.
He's just more comfortable. He's just more comfortable. No, as in said, more comfortable on the one side, and Kanan can play both.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, just one question from me, Coach Jake. What are you expecting from the guys that's come back into the team now to maybe strengthen the side a bit more with experience like Marco, Wilco, Kobus, Stedman? What are you expecting from those guys this weekend to step up, to be leading by example, like you just said, especially in the defensive setups, and obviously Willie just bring that calmness in the team? I've spoken to a lot of players and I know Willie brings that calmness, but obviously he needs the help of other senior guys that can obviously not lead, but lead by example on the field.
Well, it's interesting team selection because it's probably, I've just thought about it as you were speaking, it's probably one of the oldest teams I've put on the field. Oldest as in mature, which is a good thing. Because you get Nazams, but Alde and he's on the bench. Ruan from Mox, but Alde he's on the bench. I know the front row are probably quite young, but generally the weather's been very, very poor, as you know. Getting a guy like Kobus Visa back and Marku, who again has only come back from injury. I'm hoping that tomorrow in the conditions we're going to play and that those guys will play their best rugby because I'm going to need Gerard, who's a Springbok, Kobus, who's just obviously been called in and he's a big, strong ball carrier. And then Marku, who was a bit quiet last week again. And that's because of the fact that he's been out for such a long time. I'm hoping that those three particularly are going to add a little bit of something to our synergy of our group. Okay. With Willie, obviously,
Cool, thank you. Just as a parting shot, and please do, I know you will correct me if I'm wrong though. I've heard you mention this issue thrice in this press conference. One in Afrikaans and twice in English. The issue about you're traveling, the derbies, about still having to face 5 weeks on the road now.
Yeah.
You're not complaining about the scheduling of this competition, especially around the Bulls.
No.
Because in the past, I'm talking about a couple of years ago, we were told that Super Rugby was not good for teams because of the exact reason, traveling and scheduling.
No. So I want to make sure that what I'm trying to say to you is my answer to that, my answer including that is for you guys to understand why there's rotation, why it looks at times that we flat, why it looks at times that we're missing something. And all I'm trying to say to you is if you look at every team in the competition, we just have a very unique year. And I haven't even mentioned this but so let me give an example. We have 2 weeks off. After we play the Stormers, but there's a camp, there's a Springbok camp where everyone goes to Cape Town. So we don't have 2 weeks off. We have 1 week off. And again, no one's not saying it's just the way it is. So when you have a player, and let's just use example, Gerard Steenkamp, if you want to give him a 2 week fresher, or you want to, he has to spend 3 of those days or 4 of those days in Cape Town at a Springbok camp. Whatever you top him up with the week before is then he doesn't really have time off. And so all I'm sharing with you is that means that from a coaching and from a conditioning and a managerial point of view, there's a lot of other things that are behind the scenes that we have to get into place. And we just have a very unique, we played most of our games away early on, which again is different to other teams. And it just happens. Maybe next year our draw will be as favorable as it was unfavorable this year. Next year, we might not be away when the Boks are about to go on tour. We just happened to be overseas when the Boks went on tour, so that the players who are overseas had to meet with them. Again, we probably would hope that next year we're not going to have to manage that. And then lastly, as I said to you, 4 derby games in a month when everyone else is getting a breather in between those derbies is a very different management dilemma or strategy that you have to have compared to other teams. And all I'm trying to share with you is that's why at times we might look flat. That's why at times some will say, geez, it's happening. Probably is happening more often than it should be happening. But I also am understanding of the fact that we have a very different, I suppose, dynamic to work through. That's all.